Welcome to Grave Discussions. I am one half of your fiendish hosts, Barnabas.
And I am the other half, Samael. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. It has been quite the year. This is episode 103,
Jesus.
2022, a Fangtastic year for fear.
Can you believe it's been 103 episodes?
No, I mean, it would be probably approaching 200 if we had been like, every week consistent like before, but it is what it is. I still can't believe we hit 100, honestly.
Which is crazy. That means we have more than like 100 hours of like stuff of like just us talking.
Yeah, way more than that, honestly.
Yeah.
Which is pretty insane, but we love doing this, and we had to come back for this last episode of the year, keeping the tradition alive. We're going to be doing our top 10 horror films of the year. So our top 10 lists of movies. If you're new to the podcast, then welcome, first of all. But for this particular type of episode, Samael and I are going to be giving you our respective top 10 lists, purely subjective, purely opinion based, but those are the 10 movies that we liked the most, and they are typically ranked, but I mean, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but we like to give you our list and kind of wrap up the year. So I'm super excited for it. I know you're super excited for it, so we're just gonna pretty much dive right into it. No news segment or anything like that, just because we got a lot to cover, but before we really get into the lists themselves, we usually like to kind of talk about the year just in general, very briefly. So, Sam, what did you think of 2022? Just, like a general kind of overview.
I think it was like the first like solid year, like really honest to God solid movies like being like, shot out at us on a constant basis since, COVID started. I mean, the last movie we really saw that was like pushed on us before quarantine was The Color Out of Space, and we saw that at the movie theater before the movie theater closed down, and then like, that was pretty much the last thing before we were all forced to turn into, recluses. And then 2020 was like super slow, and there was stuff being released on, Shudder, like what was it, like Host, right? Like
Yeah.
Host, and then there's like a few things on Tubi being released, and then some stuff on Netflix, but it was relatively a slow year. Movie theaters were closed down, business was not booming for anybody, and horror cinema had like, kind of taken a knee for COVID, and we really saw it start to kind of pick back up about like a third of the way through like 2021. Everything's like trying to make a comeback, and now 2022, it seems like everything's like, cinema wise, like back to normal. Stuff's being released, stuff's being marketed in ads. Like there's movies people are being excited about. I mean, I feel like 2023 is going to be better. Like we got a lot of stuff coming out next year as well. I mean, Scream fucking, was it the sixth one now?
Yeah, 6.
So, I mean, and who knows what Shudder has in store for us, and Netflix is constantly dropping surprises on us. Like Shudder is always dropping shit. Like I think next year is like, because 2020 was like a ghost town. 2021 the dust was kind of settling. 2022 it was like a year after the end of the Great Depression. Stuff's trying to reach equilibrium, and now 2023 I feel like can kick back up.
Yeah, I hear you. I pretty much agree completely because, like that span of 2-ish years was kind of rough. Not a lot of production companies or filmmakers felt extremely confident in releasing lots of content to movie theaters for obvious reasons. And so a lot of stuff that was created, that was produced, that was distributed went to streaming. But, we still didn't see quite the level of quality and quantity that we normally do. And 2022 really felt like the first kind of normal year. You know, we had like several big franchise movies come out this year, which is huge. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to like look back at previous years and compare, but I think definitely like more substantial in that respect than like 2020 or 2021. You know, we had like TCM, Scream 5, Hellraiser, etc. Like several other movies as well. And then you had like honestly some pretty major like independent releases as well. You know, new material that did come into the theater and honestly like blew everybody's expectations away, and a bunch of the same type of movies that came to streaming and like likewise blew a lot of people's expectations away. So this was honestly a huge year for horror, and this year for horror especially proved that the genre is honestly growing in popularity, and but still remained very popular, like in the box office especially, and even for viewing numbers. I mean, like you said, Shudder got, you know, like lots of new releases, probably lots of new subscribers. The unfortunate thing is, I don't know if you like read about this at all, but you know, AMC owns Shudder, and they announced a ton of layoffs, unfortunately, and Shudder was not spared. So some of their like senior staff and other members did get laid off. So I'm a little concerned about Shudder going into 2023, but I know they'll be fine. I just hope that it doesn't have like a huge dramatic impact on their library and like their release schedules and acquisitions and things like that.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like,
I mean, I still think
what the hell's gonna happen? Like, are we gonna like be forced to go to Tubi or like to Screenbox? Is Shutter gonna collapse now that the senior staff is out? Like, what are the selections gonna be like now? Is it gonna be more, you know, like it always has been, like, you know, marketed towards like people like us that are lovers of the genre? Or is it going to be like cookie cutter movies that are going to be uploaded on there now, like Final Destination and stuff like that? You know what I mean? So
yeah, I still think the quality is going to be there. I don't think they're going to pivot like too much from their core market or anything like that. But I just hope like the mainly it's like the operational kind of aspect that I'm worried about, but I don't think it's going to go under, and I still think they're going to cater to people like us and not just like the blockbuster, you know, horror movie fans. So I'm not too worried, but like I said, this year was still huge for horror. I mean, I think any even semi knowledgeable or like self-respecting, you know, executive somewhere will understand that and will still invest in horror. So I mean, I'm really looking forward to the new year, but this year was honestly huge. This year, you know, like solidified the fact that horror is still big. You know, it's a, I mean, I don't know, it's a profitable and well-liked cinematic genre, and you know, like we need to have more of it, and we need to have more risks. That's what I like too in 2022. I feel like there were a lot of movies that were kind of risky, which I love. You know, because like you'll probably see in our top 10 lists, there are movies that, you know, prior to like the pandemic probably would have not even been released to theaters or done nearly as well or been received as well. So
no reward without the risk, man. I think you can't push the envelope without risk. If we're just playing it safe, even when it comes to our like classic, like, you know, like movie anti-heroes like Jason and Michael and Pinhead and Leatherface, like there also needs to be a changing of the guard. I think I feel like I feel like every newer movie from the OGs is trying to like live up to some expectation, and it's just like, bro, just make a sequel. People don't want you know, we love the risk, but there's a lot of the movies of this year that took that risk, and it was like kind of like, what are you doing? Like, we just wanted to see more of our heroes, and then a lot of stuff got like kind of like, and this is not about Hellraiser, by the way. I still haven't seen that. I'm talking more of like Texas.
is this about Halloween Ends?
And Texas Chainsaw? Like, I feel like bringing Leatherface into 2022 as like a fucking 7-year-old man, it's kind of weird, and I don't know. It's just like, We just want to see classic like sequels. When it comes to the OGs, we just want to see stereotypical sequels, honestly. I feel like most of us. But when it comes to like the newer original movies, like yeah, that's when we want like, stuff that's going to shock and awe and like fuck with us and like just completely like change the tropes and everything. And I don't know, like I just it's been a roller coaster, honestly, this year for the original movies and for the OGs. So
Yeah. I mean, there were definitely some like low lows, but I also feel like there were some really high highs as well. And like even for example, I'm not going to mention specific movies, but there were certain movies that I think that could probably be, already seen as modern classics or instant classics, and definitely some characters specifically that probably fit the mold. So I'm interested to see where those movies and characters stand after like a few years, hell, even next year. But we'll get more into that. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think 2022 was definitely a great year for horror, one that we really needed for horror, because even though there were some shitty movies and sequels and whatnot, like God, don't get me started on Hocus Pocus 2. I don't know how
I
you feel
mean,
about that,
I
but
mean, bro, fucking the
you know,
Terror Train remake came out this year, straight to
yeah, I
Tubi.
didn't
Like,
even watch
what does
that.
that tell you?
Yeah, it looked terrible. Yeah, it looked terrible. I didn't even know about it until someone in that like Facebook group posted like Terror Train. I was like, Terror Train, like is this a remake or something? And then I looked into it and I was like, oh God, dude,
I
there's
didn't,
no way they like made a sequel to Terror Train.
I did not know about it till I opened up Tubi to try to look for like miscellaneous horror movies, and then I just saw Terror Train, and I was like, huh? And then there was like a clown on the front or something, and I was like, yep, nope.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's wild to me. But all right, before we get too much more off track, let's dive into our top 10 list here. And I know you made pretty much just a top 10. I did keep track of my entire kind of list of horror movies that I've seen this year. And usually I like to at least give a few honorable mentions. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give a few honorable mentions and then we'll dive right into number 10, if that works
Let's
for
get
you.
it. Let's hear your honorable mentions. I'm curious.
All right.
I know for
All
me,
right. So,
VHS 99 is an honorable mention.
okay. That was in my top 25. But I think I probably ended up watching like more movies than you did
Yeah,
this
I
year.
think
So,
so.
all right. Well, I'm only going to give my three honorable mentions. So at number 13, I had Scream 5. Now, I know not, this might trigger some people. I know the caretaker, for example, loves Scream, loves Scream 5 as well. And I did like it, but I don't know. I just preferred my top 10, and I thought Scream 5 was great. I'm really looking forward to Scream 6, but I don't know. It didn't have those defining elements, I think, for me to make it all the way up into my top 10. I appreciated what it did, but at the end of the day, it's a good blockbuster horror sequel for me, not a ton more than that. So at number 12, I don't know if you've seen this one or not, but I have Phil Tippett's Mad God.
I may have scrolled by it.
Okay. Well, I think you would probably enjoy it, but it's definitely kind of an acquired taste, I'll say. So basically, the movie has been in the works for like, I don't even know how long, 2 decades or something like that, like a crazy long time.
That's
It's
crazy.
it's completely stop motion. It's from one of the, I think, visual effects supervisors on, and don't roast me if I get this wrong, online users, but I think he worked on like Star Wars or Jurassic Park, maybe both or one or the other. I should have probably done more research, but anyway, he worked on like one of those iconic films, and so he's been working on this movie for a really long time, pretty much like almost by himself, although he's had a team behind him, but um, largely by himself, really kind of like doing all the models, like the sculptures, setting up the environments and everything, filming it, and it's extremely interesting. It's basically like this spelunker's journey into like the bowels of hell, to like carry out this like bombing mission or something like that. I don't know. The story's kind of vague because there's really no dialogue in it, and it's kind of like all over the place, but that's the gist of it. But it's super cool. It's like really disturbing. It's I don't know. It's just this like phantasmagoric like descent into hell, all stop motion. It's super cool. I mean, I think you should at least like check it out. Just to see it.
Okay.
It's an experience. That's all I'll say.
I mean, it sounds
Uh,
super interesting.
yeah. I don't know. I know it didn't probably connect to a lot of people because it doesn't really have like a very like typical linear story to it, you know? And like I said, there's a really like no dialogue. So it's hard to even like connect with the characters, but it's really just about like the visual and like sensory experience of the film. So I definitely recommend for anybody who hasn't seen it, at least just give it a chance, just see what it's all about because it's extremely fascinating. And you know, the guy put a lot of work into it, pretty much grassroots effort to like get it out into the world. Went to Shutter, you know, Shutter picked it up and it was like a pretty big hit there. So and then at number 11, I have kind of also flew under the radar, but and you know, it's hard to call it like horror straight up, but it does have horror elements, so I would say it's adjacent. But this one came out on Netflix and it's called The House. Seek it out on Netflix. It was kind of like I said under the radar release, but it came out one day. I saw like maybe some stills of it online or something like that. And it's actually an animated feature. I think this one actually may also be stop motion, but don't quote me on that. I think there are some stop motion elements to it, but this one's kind of interesting because it's an anthology movie, and I think there are three distinct stories. And the main kind of draw of it is that the characters are basically anthropomorphic characters. So I think I don't know if they're all rabbits or something, but I think in the first one the main character is like a rabbit, and you know he walks and talks like a person kind of. Um, and then I think in the other stories there are other animals, but it's interesting. I mean, the third story doesn't have quite so much like horror elements, but the first and I think the second story definitely do. And the horror elements that are present, I think, are pretty creepy for like a stop motion animated film. Especially the first story because it's about like this this guy who's like preparing a house to be basically sold, and so he's getting ready for like an open house, and all these like bugs start pouring in and basically make the house kind of like janky and you know and dirty and fucked up. And there are some pretty like cool horror elements, like some pretty creepy things in that story in particular. So I really liked it. I thought it was a pretty innovative film, so that's why it's number 11 for me. All right, so now on to our lists in earnest, starting at number 10. You want to go first, Sam?
All right, let's get it. At number 10, I had to include it, even though I was not a giant fan. I felt like it was all over the place, but I had to include it because my boy is in there. At number 10, we have Halloween Ends.
All right, brave of you.
Very brave, considering like I was not a giant fan. But out of everything I seen this year, I had to include it because of our boy Michael. And spoiler alert, it's his final film in the franchise because he gets straight up fucking murdered by a grandma and her granddaughter. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I felt like I liked where the movie was going at the beginning, and then at the middle it kind of lost me, and then at the end I was like, what the fuck? But I thought, well, at the end it kind of picked up when Corey was the shape, when he was going around murdering people, and I
Yeah.
thought Corey was a badass shape. I thought it was just weird him running around with a jumpsuit and some fucking Converse. You know what I mean? Like it was just like,
Yeah.
you know, at least give him some fucking boots. But I felt like it deserved to be in the top 10 since it's like the last one out of that franchise. And Michael Myers and David Gordon Green's franchise has like, you know, they're lucky it does, but it does have a special place in my heart because it
Mhm.
brought back our friend Mikey after years and years of him being gone. And then, I don't know, I felt like whatever kind of like movie Halloween Ends was going to be, everyone was going to be upset about it, whether it be another run of the mill slasher, whether it be like a showdown. So they decided to, as you say, be brave and take this in another direction. And I'm kind of glad they did, because like the more I sit and think about it, the less I kind of like hate it. And I think I just
Yeah.
got to go back and rewatch it. But I gave it a chance, and at against my better judgment, I put it at the very last spot, number 10. So compared to the other movies I saw, this one was my least favorite, if I'm gonna be honest.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair, dude. I mean, I'll say this much. It has like redeeming qualities. It's not like even though we kind of shit on it, especially in our last episode, we also did point out the good qualities as well. And I mean,
For sure.
there were some good things about Halloween Ends. Don't get me wrong, but also to say, if you guys haven't seen, also if you guys haven't listened to our last episode where we covered Halloween Ends, go check it out. It's episode 102. You can find it right on our website, gravediscussions.net. But anyway, I still think I'm going to go back and watch it at some point too. I don't know if my opinions on all the kind of shit parts are going to change for me, but
Probably not.
I know with repeated watches that, I won't give it such a hard time because my expectations are already where they're at. I'm not like looking to overanalyze it or whatever, and I can really kind of just enjoy it. But I still think elements like the Corey storyline could have been done better. Just how Michael was presented probably could have been done better. I still wasn't like a huge fan of where the Allison character went and all that, but I get it. I mean, it's kind of like a last hoorah, and I know you love Halloween, so it makes complete sense.
Had to put it in there, man. Like, even though like it wasn't like the best Halloween film, probably like honestly like bottom four of the entire franchise.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
that's not saying much, considering like the most of the franchise is kind of shit anyway. But yeah, it's kind of down there with Rob Zombie's Halloween for me.
Yeah, that's fair enough, man. I probably would agree with that. Well, my number 10, you actually just said not that long ago that you still haven't seen it, which is surprising to me, but hopefully after my placement and after my mini little review, you'll go and watch
Yeah,
it pretty quickly, but it's
I, f- I, f-
Hellraiser.
I was gonna say I feel like it's Hellraiser.
Yep. Yeah. I was really looking forward to this one because I, I was looking forward to this one because I really kind of followed this movie from its conception to its release. I was on there, I was on social media defending, the casting of Jamie Clayton as the Hell Priest or Pinhead, and defending, David Bruckner and all that. Even before I watched the movie, because I appreciated that they were going back to the source material. And last year, if any of you ghouls want to go check out our last, like top 10 annual review, I had a David Bruckner film, The Night House, as my number one film, and I thought
The Night
that
House was so good.
it was great. Yeah, and I thought that movie was great. I think David Bruckner is doing some big things in horror right now, and I think he's a competent horror director. So I was like, this movie's got to be good, right? And I watched it, and it was, for me at least. Some people weren't like huge fans of the Cenobite makeup and all that. I get that. It's different. It's not your standard Clive Barker, 80s Hellraiser, like clad in leather and shit. But they were trying to make it more akin to the source material where they're kind of clad in like actual skin and whatnot. And I overall enjoyed the Cenobite designs, but I just really loved the atmosphere of this movie. The main characters were kind of whatever, but I think they were fine. But just in general, I mean, the fact that this movie was able to take this original material and then knowing that it had to go up against Clive Barker's original Hellraiser as well, Doug Bradley as Pinhead and all that, and actually like put out a pretty great horror film is huge for me. And I think that it's probably the most impressive like release in like an existing franchise this year for me at least, just because it had to basically meet that standard, and I think it did. You know, whether or not it becomes a classic like Barker's Hellraiser remains to be seen, but I think it's a really good entry. And this one, honestly, for me, is probably at least top 3 or 4 in the Hellraiser franchise, which again, like Halloween isn't saying that much because after like 3, they kind of were shit, but
Yeah,
still.
I would say after 2 they kind of go to shit.
Yeah. So honestly, man, like I think it did a really good job. So you should go check it out. If anybody is still on the fence about it because, you know, you have your obligation to the classic Hellraiser or whatever, just put that aside. Go check it out. You know, I think that most people are probably going to like it. You know, if you put your nostalgia aside, just watch the movie for what it is. It's a pretty cool story, honestly, you know, and the story and like the characters and their motivations honestly fit the Hellraiser like mythos and the lore, I think, pretty well. So that's my number 10.
I definitely will go check it out. It's just like with like Halloween and everything and like every other movie that I've like had on my list to watch during the month of October, I kind of like was like, Hellraiser doesn't fit the mold for my like list of movies for Halloween. So I was like, let me
Yeah.
just let me save that one for a rainy day.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know. I don't know what's happening over there, but we got this huge like winter storm coming this weekend. So if you guys have
Oh
anything
yeah.
similar, like it would be a good time to hunker down and maybe like watch Hellraiser or something. But I get it. There were a lot of like new releases in October. It was really hard to keep up with everything. I didn't watch everything either.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. That was our number 10 movie of 2022. Now moving on to number 9.
Number
Samael.
9, I just think you're gonna be shocked that I chose this movie because you're gonna be
Okay.
like, that is reprehensible. I don't know how this movie made it into your top 10. But
We'll
listen,
see.
I enjoyed it because of how much I didn't enjoy it. And number 9 is Dash Cam.
Oh, okay. I still haven't seen it. So,
Okay, let me
I'm
tell you this. The
okay.
main character is reprehensible. She's like constantly saying like all this like make America great again and
Oh
snowflakes
god.
and are you triggered? And then like she goes to like her friend in England and they hang out and then she steals his car and he's like what the fuck? And then she like goes and tries to like do DoorDash or whatever. And then she picks up this like old lady who's like acting all strange and it turns out the old lady is like possessed. No, was it an old lady or is it a kid? I think it's an old lady, yeah. And then like
Mm,
her daughter's trying to like get to her and she's like chasing down the car and the old lady turns out to be like possessed or like some sort of like demonic like vampire type thingy.
okay.
And then the girl's like her and her friend are like trying to help her out and this bitch is like all like climbing a tree and shit and like hiding in the woods and all at the same time the main character still being like reprehensible and unredeemable, and then she wanders upon this like fucking cult in the middle of nowhere and she tries to get out and then
Oh,
like
okay.
there's another demon and it's like an actual like creature and it's in like chasing her through like a garage and like and it's she's like rapping throughout the whole movie and it is embarrassing for all parties involved. It is the best worst movie I've ever seen and I think you
Wow.
should check it out.
I mean, that's pretty high praise, honestly. Yeah, I know I try not to spoil myself about it, but I did come across a lot of posts on social media, like a lot of posts. I think I don't know if it hit like a streaming service or something, but there was like a specific period of time where I was just seeing nothing but fucking dash cam posts and I was like, okay, I guess I'll have to watch this movie eventually, but like I didn't know what it was about. I heard about it earlier in the year cuz it was getting some hype, but it wasn't
Yeah.
really until like later in the year that all these people were coming out like this is the worst movie I've ever seen. The main character fucking sucks. Like she's the worst, blah blah blah. And I was like, I guess I got to see it cuz I have no idea what can make
Oh
people
my god.
rage this
You
badly,
are
but
you will hate her so bad. You're gonna hate her with all of your heart. But like once shit starts going down, it starts going the fuck down. I think I rented it for like $4 off of Prime.
okay. So is it more like you just you like it because she's so fucking terrible that you just want to see it through so that she dies? Or like
Yes,
were there
yes,
other
but
good qualities about the movie?
there are good qualities. How creepy the possessed woman is, how creepy the demons are,
Okay.
the cult, the kills are fucking crazy. There's a bitch with the shotgun chasing them. It's if you're
Okay.
okay, this is a Friday night chilling and hanging out with your girl type of movie. This is not like a movie you want to like,
Okay.
like you're not looking for any like sort of like analysis
Yeah.
and like trying to like pinpoint like what means what. This is a
Okay.
mindless fucking movie. It is so fucking dumb that I love it.
Hey, sometimes you need to watch a movie like that, so I get it. Plus, I really like those found footage movies where there's just like a lot of chaotic shit going on and like some
Oh,
creepy
dude,
stuff, So
I'll watch Hellraiser if you watch this.
okay, yep, deal.
But
Cool. All right. It was already on my list, but now I'm gonna try to prioritize it. All right.
cool.
My number 9. Again, kind of like Dashcam, maybe not quite as much because I know Dashcam is like really on one end of the spectrum, and this movie maybe is not quite there. But this movie, I think, really depends on how you perceive what's going on in the movie. You know what I mean? Well,
Yeah.
you'll know. I don't know if you've seen it, but you'll kind of understand, I think, when you hear it. But this one you might be surprised about for me too. I don't know, but it is Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
See, I've been hearing about it, but I have not seen it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you probably at least have a vague idea of kind of what it's about. Pete
Like
Davidson's in it. You've
reprehensible
got
teenagers.
Yeah, essentially. You've got Pete Davidson. You've got I don't remember all of their names off the top of my head, but the one actress, the lead from Shiva Baby, is in it, which she's honestly a great actress and super funny. But it's essentially about this group of like privileged, overprivileged teenagers who get together at like a mansion. Not any of theirs, of course. It's like their families because they're those fucking uh like I said, super privileged, like wealthy teens who don't give a shit, etc. They're really obnoxious ones.
The ones
And
you like root to like get murdered. Like they're the ones you want to see get their heads pulled off like a champagne cork.
Exactly. Yeah. There's almost like nobody redeemable really, or anybody that you want to root for, except I guess.
Perfect.
Yeah. Except I guess for the main character B to some extent, because she kind of comes in like you don't really know too much about her. She's like the shy, quiet girl kind of thing. You learn more about her as the movie goes on, of course. But anyway, there's this like huge hurricane coming, and so these teens are like at this mansion, basically partying to celebrate the hurricane or whatever. I don't know. It's some dumb shit, right? But one thing leads to another. I don't know. One thing leads to another. They're like they're in this mansion. It's nighttime. The storm causes like the power to go out in the house and shit. And they decide to play this game Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And it's kind of like a murder mystery thing. The lights go out. Someone is the killer, and if the killer finds you, they tag you and you have to be like dead or whatever. But essentially they come across a real dead body, and then they're forced to try to find out who the killer is. Meanwhile, they're all like pretty shit people. They're all hiding something. They all have something against one another. It's that kind of thing. So
is
it's
this one on Shudder?
I don't think it's on Shudder, but it might be on a streaming service. I'm not sure.
I'll have to rent it. It sounds like it's up my shitty people getting
cool.
murdered. Like this is what we live for. Like
yeah,
this is it.
It's essentially, I'll say this much, it's part murder mystery, part like comedy, part neo slasher, because it does present as like a slasher movie. I'll say that much. But it doesn't really feature like your standard, masked killer type of thing. But it has lots of slasher elements, but it does smart things with them. So it's at the same time, it's kind of like a look into the slasher genre, but it tries to do something different by examining these like youths as well and their internal conflict. It's really their like internal like group dynamic and their distrust of one another that really drives the movie forward. And it does some pretty smart things, in my opinion. And honestly, there are some pretty funny moments too. So I know this one kind of divided a lot of people because people are like, it's stupid. It's got like Pete Davidson in it. He sucks, and like, I don't know, it was stupid. You know, the standard arguments, but I think this movie is kind of like a neo slasher doing something new in the slasher subgenre. I think is pretty cool, and I think it did what it set out to do. There were some tense scenes, some good cinematography. Honestly, I think this movie had some great acting too. I'll give it up for the actors, you know. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed it. So
Yeah,
I definitely recommend you check it out.
I feel like I would enjoy something like that too. And I was just looking it up. When a group of 20 somethings attend a hurricane party, like, okay, yeah, you all
Yeah,
deserve to die. Uh,
yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's pretty cool, you know. Like my wife and I were just kind of sitting there, you know, debating like who the killer was, why they did it, etc. So it's a fun time, you know, and it'll leave you guessing, and then the end is totally it's totally off the walls, and you may not expect it. So
oh
that's
yeah.
always good in horror, right? All right. So those are our number 9 picks for our top 10 list, fiends. Moving on to number 8.
Number 8, streaming on Shudder, a movie I just watched Thanksgiving weekend, and I loved it. It reminded me of an old Giallo film. It reminded me of somebody's watching, like kind of like you said, like Rear Window, and it is Shudder's Watcher, not Netflix's The Watcher, but Shudder's Watcher.
Nice.
It definitely is worthy of the spot. It's tense. It has a couple moving to Romania, you know, typical Slavs. And then there's like a murderer going around, and then they think they find the killer. And then the main character is like, wait a minute, I think I'm being stalked by the killer. And there's twists and turns and twists and turns, and then a giant twist at the end. And it's like, wow. I felt like it was done right. It was
Mhm.
super eerie. You were wondering the whole time, am I crazy? Is she crazy? Are we all crazy? Is it her? Is it the husband? I suspected the husband at first, kind of. Like, that would have been the craziest twist ever. But
Yeah,
it's
I agree.
solid. It's so fucking solid, man. The creep factor is great. The constant, like, I felt like I had eyes on me while I was watching that movie. And
Mhm.
you really didn't know what to think. This movie took you in like 18 different directions, and you did not know like which idea to just fucking run with. I was talking to my fiance while we were watching the movie, and like, oh, we were just like, I don't know which direction this is gonna go. I feel like it's either gonna be very like Occam's razor, simple, like the simplest explanation is like the actual one, or it's gonna go like off the rails and go in like a completely different direction that we didn't see before. And I was really hoping it wasn't like, oh, it was just all in her imagination, and it fucking wasn't. Thank goodness. That would have been the shittiest fucking ending, but I loved how it ended, and I feel like that's how those stalker movies should be done. Bravo.
Yeah, dude, I agree. I mean, I really only have nice things to say about it. The only thing I guess I would criticize it for is that the concept itself, like the plot itself, is not new. But it doesn't have to be, because what it does, it I think it does very well. And this movie, in my opinion at least, probably has one of the best atmospheres of a horror slash thriller movie of this year, flat out. Because I mean, like you described, it's completely eerie. It leaves you guessing, you know, just even like the shots of the windows, of the alleys, everything is set up to make you feel uneasy, to make you feel like the main character is never safe, which you come to find out she really isn't. And that's the kind of brilliance of it, because, you know, every single scene, every single frame that she's in, you're kind of looking in the background. You're trying to see, okay, is somebody stalking her? Is somebody there? So it's really tense. And I agree. Like, you know, we ended up watching it as well, and we really enjoyed it because we were just kind of like, you know, on the edge of our seats the whole time, if you'll excuse the, you know, phrase. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was really well done. I think Micah Monroe did a great job, and the direction by Chloe Okuno, who, fun fact, did the Ratma segment Storm Drain in VHS
Oh.
94. Yep, this was her first like big feature after that one, and so I think she's a horror filmmaker to watch out for sure. But I think she did a great job directing this one, and that's a solid number 8, man. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I had never had a movie gaslight me so many times. It was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, it really took you through like a lot of twists and turns. Honestly, like the first time, I don't want to spoil it, but the first time she like went into the apartment building and kind of saw him, I was like, fuck, like was I wrong the whole time? Like was it just leading me on? Is this guy really just a red herring? And then well, I don't want to say too much more, but I think it's set up in a very great way. Like the structuring of the story, of the twists and everything is really good.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it dragged on at all or like was like
Mm-mm.
leading us up a wall for no reason. It didn't leave anything like unexplained. I just felt like I was invested in it, and then when it was finally over, I was sad because like the mystery was gone, and I was like, damn it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Well, my number 8 is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, honestly. And it's the last movie to be on my list anyway, to be part of an already existing horror franchise. So everything after this are originals, surprisingly. But um this one is streaming on Hulu. I wonder if you know what it is. And I'm kind of surprised actually I put it over Hellraiser, but I just really enjoyed this one. And it is none other than Prey.
Oh, son of a bitch! I completely forgot about that movie.
Oh, did you? Well, I wonder. Tell me at the end where you'd maybe put it, because I don't want to spoil any of your other picks. But yeah, dude, Prey was sweet. I was really looking forward to this one because I'm a Predator fan, but I wouldn't say I'm like a humongous Predator fanboy. But I really appreciated that this movie was trying out something a little different. I know there's some controversy, with your friends, short film and everything like that, but I still had to include it because I did enjoy Prey quite a bit.
Oh yeah, dude, you can enjoy whatever you want. Like in a, I mean, it's. I felt like the elements in it were like kind of like not stereotypical, but what else can you do? Like, oh, a girl. Can a girl be? And the thing about this movie, it wasn't like, is the girl strong? Is she strong enough to beat
Hmm.
the predator? It was like, is she smart enough? Is she cunning enough? Is
Exactly.
she athletic enough? And that was like the whole thing. And it's like, whatever people want to call this a woke movie, like fine, but it doesn't like jam the shit down your fucking throat. And
No.
it's not just like girls can do it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, can we like stop pretending like there weren't badass, probably very strong native women back in that time? I mean, sure they weren't
There's
fighting
definitely.
alien hunters from outer space, but like the gender norms were not even nearly the same as like what we know of nowadays, and everybody had to
No, dude.
contribute,
She could
especially
definitely
like
like
native women.
like native women from back in the day can definitely beat your average zoomer in a fist fight. Like you know what I mean? Like all these
Yeah.
TikTokers, like she would like they would get fucking curb stomped. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I mean, I think Amber Midthunder embodied that really well. I think she did a fantastic job. Arguably, the best aspect of that film, apart from the Predator itself, I think the kind of older, more ancient kind of Predator was super cool. He still had the advanced technology, but it was
I still
a
think he
little
was
more dated.
I don't know, I feel like he was more badass than the original. I'm sorry, fanboys.
No, I think it was cool because you can tell like this is not like a super skilled Predator, but
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense because at the same time you have like this native technology and like muskets and shit, and so the playing field is similar. But like you said, kind of like the original Predator, it's not about who has more brawn, right? It's about
Exactly.
who's the smarter combatant. And so this movie did that, I think, really well too. Plus, it did have also this character arc of her kind of trying to prove herself in her tribe, and I think it did that well, like you said, without shoving it down your throat. I know some people automatically are going to think that that's what was happening just because she's a female, just because her one line or whatever about like having to prove herself as like a competent warrior and everything. But fuck it, I mean, this movie wasn't woke, but what it was, I think, was an entertaining and well done Predator movie. and the visual effects were cool. You know, the story was fine. I mean, it was what it was, similar to Predator in a lot of respects, like of how the Predator came and everything. But I liked it.
It was enjoyable, and if anyone's like, I just don't want to hear that woke bullshit. Everyone always, dude, 80s movies were woke. There was always a final girl. Like, there would be a girl who's like 5'3", 115 pounds, and she would absolutely mangle like the 6'6" murderer. Like, come on. Like, that's not woke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I don't want to get too much into it because it's not even worth it. But so let's move on to number 7 now.
Are we at number 7?
Yep, number 7.
Alrighty. So, for number 7, I have the infamous X.
Okay, perfect. It's actually my pick as well, so we can just discuss it together.
Perfect. I'm glad you felt like how I felt. I felt like it was very well directed. I loved the setting. It gave very original Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes, like the setting itself. But I'm not going to lie, once I started watching it, I did not know where it was going. I did not know it was going to be like batshit crazy old people, you know, because like, you know, that just that just seems to be like the theme nowadays. Like the whole movie, I guess, was about boomers hating the Zoomers. You know what I mean? If we can like,
yeah, essentially,
and it's about like, you know, the older generation and the newer generation.
Yeah,
and blah,
it's not contemporary, but that's essentially kind of what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just, I felt like honestly, I felt like the final, they kind of threw us for a loop and threw all the tropes out the window. The person you thought was going to be the final girl ends up like not being the final girl because like I don't know, spoilers, she has sex and then like cheats on her boyfriend, and then it turns out like the promiscuous girl from the beginning is the final girl, which is like, what the fuck? And it makes the most sense because like that whole like repressed virgin energy, you know, like that's not a thing. You know, I mean, people could say it is all you want, but the more experienced person, the more the person that's been through the most fucking shit, the person that's lived life and like seen real things, like Mia Goth's character, that's the one that's going to get out of the situation. It's not going to be the little duncy virgin girl. But you know, they threw away that trope like, you know, halfway through the fucking movie anyway. So, and then you got the fucking pussy ass boyfriend crying in the corner like, she cheated on me. It's like, bro, grow some fucking balls. Like, if your girl like literally right in front of you says, I'm about to hop on this dick and like get filmed doing it, like you should just fucking walk away. You don't go in a corner and fucking cry. Like, come on, dude, you're such a fucking bitch. I hated him.
I mean,
I hated
him.
the
whole, I did too, but the whole, you know, virgin thing is rooted in in religion essentially. And so, you know, following the 80s trend of like the virgin final girl because she's holy, and so, you know, her holiness defeats the evil being or killer or whatever. It was fine then because, you know, the whole kind of religious aspect of it was still very prevalent throughout like 70s 80s America, but much different now. I mean, Ty West obviously is kind of a boundary pusher
for sure, dude,
and he approached this movie as, you know, like sex and even like sin to her, you know, to some respect, or what we think of as sin, can be liberating. It can be powerful, and that's the whole point of like having these people filming like a porno on this set, which they're really not supposed to be at, you know. So that's kind of the whole point of it. And so, you know, taking Jenna Ortega's character, flipping that whole thing on its head, and then having her kind of end up being like sort of a bitch after her whole exploration, you know. I think that was a really interesting way to defy that trope, and definitely shocking. So I appreciated what it did. And yeah, like you said, I wasn't expecting I kind of expected the older folks to be the killers, but I did not expect a lot of their behavior to be what it was.
It was very fucking weird, dude. And then the little twist at the end about Mia Goth's character on the TV screen, remember? with her dad.
Yep. Yeah, man. I don't know. And it was really cool, I think, too, that she played two different characters in this movie, and I had no idea she was.
It wasn't until I read some trivia about it. I had no fucking idea that was her. She's so fucking talented. Like, the only time I ever heard of her character was it The Cure for Wellness? Remember that movie?
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but
it's really long and very confusing. And then she was in like
okay,
what was his name? The Nymphomaniac trilogy or whatever. Like he made Antichrist.
Okay. Yeah, Lars von Trier.
Yeah, he did like the Depression trilogy or whatever. Because he was
yeah. Oh, and she was in Suspiria as well, but she was kind of like a secondary character. I think I don't remember her character very well.
Yeah,
the new Suspiria.
She's a gangster, man.
Yeah, this is the first movie I think we've come across where, like I was saying before about kind of these modern horror icons. I mean, Mia Goth, I think already this year alone has cemented herself as like a bona fide scream queen, and I think she's only going to go up from here.
I don't know.
I mean, her role as
she's married to Shia. I don't know if she was married to Shia LaBeouf, and they got like a kid or some shit.
Oh, I didn't know that either. I didn't.
There's some trivia.
Her role here as like, as Maxine and Pearl. I mean, I think is, she wanted to be a star, right, in the movie, and I mean, I think this full movie and sequel, I think, have already kind of cemented her place as like kind of a horror, at least a modern horror icon.
I think so.
We'll see where it goes, but Pearl, the character of Pearl was absolutely insane, and then Maxine, like you said, is hit or miss. I mean, you can kind of tell why she's not very likable because she just has such this like a brash personality, but it's also really refreshing for a final girl to be like Maxine. So, the movie was absolutely batshit crazy. I know a lot of people were not super high on the fact that it did take like a little while to get into everything, but I think it was fine. I mean, they set up all the elements really well, in my opinion. The atmosphere was great. It was really just this lingering dread. Like, even though it took a while for it to really get into everything, I think the tension and the anxiety that you felt while everything was being set up, least for me,
that's what it
made it well worth it.
It was the tension, and the tension with like you didn't expect the payoff to be so fucking crazy, like just naked old bitch. Like, come on, like that was fucking fire, man. Like I don't care what anyone says, that movie's so fucking good.
It really is, dude. I mean, I think this is gonna be like a cult classic slasher of the 2020s at least,
for sure.
And it was just awesome that it was awesome that it was also essentially just a throwback to classic slashers and exploitation movies while kind of flipping a lot of those things on its head, and that's what we really need more of. Stuff like Halloween Ends was fine. It was like a cap to the trilogy, but if you really want to harken back to like the old days, X, I think, does it really well.
I agree.
All right. Well, that was both of our number 7 movies. We always have one, I feel like, that's in the same spot.
I feel like we might have.
I'm curious.
I feel like
we
might have two. I feel like we might have two.
All right, we'll see.
Okay.
All right, well, how about number 6 then?
Okay, for number 6, and let me know if you have the same one. Number 6, I have Black Phone.
Okay, it's not the same one.
Okay.
But go on.
I felt Black Phone was very, very simple, and it was done well. And like, people can say like, oh, it's a very like, it's like too simple. And then like the fucking shit I heard is like from like the online groups is like, oh, there's not enough backstory. First of all, everything in the backstory was insinuated. It was implicit based on like a sentence or two that was said, or based on how the killer was acting with the mask and stuff like that. Like, I mean, we can only infer that the killer's dad used to put him in that basement. Like I said, based upon everything he said, and like he's like, I used to hear the phone ringing when there's just little shit like we don't need. Bro, movies are so fucking stupid when they're like, oh, this is going on right now. Also, let's cut the scene and do half an hour of backstory. That's fucking stupid. That's dumb as fuck.
Yeah. Or when it's like the classic setup of like terrifying thing happens, character takes 20 minutes to go out somewhere to some building, open up a book that just happens to be about the exact thing they need to fucking know
Of
about,
course.
researches it. I mean, even Sinister had that to some respect. So, but still, it's a common trope, and I feel like it takes away a lot because then you're just like having the character go and do all this unnecessary bullshit instead of giving us like more scares or more lines of dialogue like in this movie where it's insinuated and not like shown directly to the audience.
Exactly. I feel like movies are smarter when they can insinuate things and everything's implicit. I feel like when you explain too much, like the background, I feel like one, you haven't written like the script good enough. You know, if you can't have these implicit things,
Hmm.
then you're just not good at like, you know, giving people like implicit hints as to like why the thing that is happening is happening. And two, I feel like the explicit background of the killer storytelling is also like kind of insulting because like I feel like you have to spoon feed us like, well, this is why he is. And on top of it, like it's not even like, on one hand it's insulting, on the other hand it's because most like people are like, well, we didn't get enough background. Like that's what makes it scarier to
Yeah.
you, the background. Really, dude, you know what's scary? You know what's not scary? If they're like some guy's going around your city kidnapping kids because he was molested as a kid or whatever, and now he's like picking up kids and molesting them, but instead and then murdering them. But if you just told me, yeah, there's a child killer on the loose, I would be more scared because like instead of you
Right.
telling me his whole fucking life story, that's useless. That's like me explaining to you why I love the color blue and like my entire childhood history because I tried a blue raspberry drink once and then I liked the drink, therefore I
Yeah.
liked blue. Like that's so fucking stupid.
I know. I mean, it's really the audiences that are like kind of dumb, and it's funny because when you really think about horror, what's the scariest element of horror? The fear of the unknown.
Exactly.
And I feel like some people seem to forget that, or they suddenly don't want that to be the case. It's like you said, if you don't know something about something, isn't that more terrifying? And I guess that's why, characters in movies even are written that way to like go and try to seek out more information, because the more you know about it in general, the more kind of logic you can pin to it, the more you can kind of theorize like, okay, how do I stop
And
it?
on top of it,
So basically the more you know, the less you fear.
you can humanize this negative entity, this antagonist of the film.
Exactly.
And humanizing an antagonist is like, why? Like people like that try to like human, like
Yeah.
I mean, not a horror movie, but look at Dark Knight. Did they give you a background to the fucking Joker? No, they
Mhm.
fucking didn't. It was all
Yeah.
implicit based on the stories he tells about his past and the similarities between the stories. He tells a different story each time. How does he know so much about explosives? He's probably ex-military. You know what I mean? You can make some inferences. Not
Mhm.
everything's supposed to be like laid out in front of you. And I feel like, I don't know. I feel like TikTok is ruining people. They can't pay attention to like a movie that's a slow burn because they're used to like 10-second videos where there's like an automatic payoff and
Yeah.
then boom, their brain rewards them with dopamine. Like, haha, that's good. So people don't want character development, which, let's be real, the whole Black
Mhm.
Phone movie was about character development. Look, and like all the implicit meanings, like the psychic nature of the kids, like with their mom, it's insinuated that that was passed on. The character development of Finn and his dad and his sister throughout the whole movie, and how like Finn went from being kind of like a pussy to like being a fucking hero at the end of it. You know what I mean? And then his dad like complete going from being like a piece of shit alcoholic to changing, and then his little sister like being a total fucking badass. Like there's multiple things to be taken from this movie. It's not just give us the background of the killer. The killer is not the important part of this movie. He's literally
Mhm.
he's this movie's about Finn. Let's be real. This whole movie is about Finn and his family, and the fact that Finn got out of this situation because he had the same gift as his mom, right? And his mom died, and now they
Right.
have the gift, and their dad's like, oh no, they're gonna be like their mom. There's a lot to unpack here, even though not much was said. You can unpack so much based on the little dialogue, because you know why? There's mystique. There we go. They're talking about it. The mystique, the mystery, and that's what makes horror. Explaining everything and spoon feeding everything is not what makes these movies good. We don't like I don't know, like the orphan first kill movie, like that did not need to be made, especially all these years later. I do
No.
not want to know her background. I don't give a fuck, and nobody gives a fuck. It's a cash grab, and they make you think you want to know these people's backgrounds because you know why? All these prequels are always cash grabs. So now we got all these prequels. So in your mind, you're like, well, this movie needs a prequel. This character needs some explanation to their background, to why they are. And you know why? That's not because you want to see that. You didn't forget that Mystique makes a horror movie a horror movie. You were fed into the whole prequel thing by Hollywood because of the cash grabs. I think that's what it is. I think that's why people want all these prequels, because they're so used to like a bunch of movies and their sequels being dumped out, and then when they run out of ideas, boom, prequel. We need to know more. We need to know more about XYZ. And I think that's really what it is. It always comes down to the cash grab.
Yeah.
Wherever we wonder why did this happen? Why did that happen? Think of the money, and I think that's what it is. I'm not sure. I don't read, but I think that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right on the money. Funny enough. But no, but there are honestly very few exceptions to the rule, and maybe one of them, will come up later on this list. But there are generally very few exceptions where actually having a prequel really does matter to the story and to the characters, and it's very often not in horror because, like we've been talking about this entire time, the appeal is the mystique. It's the fear of the unknown. The more you know about these characters, the more you know about their history, their backstory and everything, the less mysterious they are, the more you can sympathize with them. And I guess unless that's specifically what you're trying to do, it just doesn't work because it devalues the horror of it.
I agree.
I mean, like Star Wars, for example, Star Wars can do it because Darth Vader is a multifaceted, incredible character, and he's still scary, but there's more to that character. But it's not a horror movie, so that's fine. But rarely has there been a horror movie that has done that has actually been interesting. It's also kind of why I'm scared about this upcoming Crystal Lake TV show.
Oh my god. I'm totally against it.
Like exploring Jason and stuff. Yeah, I think it's gonna be good. I mean, it's from the same guy who did Hannibal, so I have no issues with him or anything, and I believe it's gonna be like a well made show. But again, it's like you're trying to humanize Jason more, and I mean his origin is sad. Don't get me wrong, but we know him as the masked killer.
It's crazy because we learned his origin in the first movie because it started with his mother. Like the whole franchise, they probably weren't even. I don't think they were meaning to go into like Jason being the killer and coming back. It was just a mom who lost her son who had just snapped. And Friday the 13th was capitalizing on the commercial success of Halloween, but they wanted to make it more like splattery and make it more 80s and capitalize on that and start a new trend. And then sure as fuck, we got Final Exam to thank you, Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I know. But even then, even though his death and everything is sad, he still comes back with a vengeance and becomes like this evil entity. And I think that is enough. And if there's more to his origin that we discover, I think it may kind of, like I said, devalue him and his status as this iconic, evil killer. But that's a whole other story. But I think you're completely right.
I think this one's also another cash grab. I mean, we've been waiting for years for new Jason material. I mean, they stopped making the game because of the lawsuit. And now with the commercial success of like Halloween and Scream, now, Jason's going to make a comeback, obviously. So I think... honestly, it's just a cash grab because I don't know about the rights, but I've heard like they don't own the rights to Jason himself. Not yet. They own the Friday the 13th rights, is what I heard.
It's tricky because Victor Miller has the rights to that original Jason character from the first film, but I guess it's something like theoretically they can use whatever they want as long as both parties agree to it. And I think both parties are involved in this new TV show, but I think just to satiate Victor Miller, they're going like back to when Jason was a kid, since that's primarily what he holds the rights to. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. Maybe we can do another episode on that. But just to cap off on the Black Phone, I mean, I completely understand why it's on your list. I think it was a great film, very eerie, lots of complexity to it, especially within like the character work. And I know you haven't quite mentioned it yet, and I know that the grabber is not like really the central focus, but Ethan Hawke's performance
Oh my
is
God.
absolutely one of the best
Amazing.
parts of this
Ethan
movie,
Hawke
so
is
we just have to call that
Ethan
out.
Hawke is definitely a scream king. He's
Oh, yeah.
great. Ethan Hawke, and now like, man, they got to get his daughter involved in more shit. I'll tell you what. Like, keep that shit in the family.
Yeah, I know they really do. So I'm looking forward to more stuff with her. And I think there may be another Black Phone movie. I guess we'll see what happens, but that's for the future. Anyway, my number 6, just so we don't get too off track. My number 6, I don't know if it's on your list. I feel like it might be. We'll see, unless you forgot about it. I don't know. But I almost really kind of want to put it even further, because this is probably the movie this year that came out that I had the most fun with. So you may have an idea. I don't know, but my number 6 movie is Deadstream.
Ooh, that did not make it to my top
Yeah.
10. Originally I was thinking about it, but I like Dashcam more. I understand why you put it on there,
That's fair.
because like I did enjoy the campiness. I couldn't, like, same thing as Dashcam though. I could not stand the main character,
Yeah.
and I was like rooting for his like demise, but also like I felt like it was a nice little modern day homage to the Evil Dead franchise.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an Evil Dead stan, so that did play a part in it, but I don't know, man. For me, it was just highly enjoyable. There wasn't really like a minute in this movie that I wasn't just kind of like beaming while I was watching it, just because it was just a lot of fun. I mean, the concept is simple, but still pretty fresh within the horror genre. And it is a found footage, but I think it even takes it a step further with the whole live streaming aspect,
Yeah.
which hasn't actually been done all that much. A lot of it has just been like the standard type of found footage after the fact. This is more like this is happening right now, feeding out to people. I guess that movie, The Cleansing Hour, kind of did it, but it still had a lot of elements of like conventional cinema to it, apart from the live streaming stuff. But this movie was just fully enclosed in this live streaming bubble, which was super cool. But it had that fan interactivity as well. But I just really dug it. Like, the atmosphere was actually pretty creepy. I know it was mainly a comedy, but there were elements to this where I was genuinely like, pretty unnerved, it was pretty tense. The makeup and everything was cool. I mean, I thought the little monsters were cool. And I know a lot of people did not like the main character. I thought he was a fuck as well, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But I thought he was honestly like hilarious. And maybe unlike Dashcam, I don't know because I haven't seen it yet, but there were parts later on in the movie with like the main character of Deadstream where you kind of we're starting to like him like a little bit, because he didn't really know what he was getting into, and all he wanted to do was just get out of this shitty situation. Even though he's like a cringe like fuckboy YouTuber or whatever. Like, did he really deserve to have all this stuff? You kind of are asking yourself those questions as the movie goes on, and I don't know. So I dug it. I just thought it was a lot of fun. I love that it was just one location, one night. And there was just a lot of like
We love those
chaotic,
isolated
creepy
movies.
stuff going on. Yeah, we really do. And I think this movie did it really well. Plus it, employed some like kind of new techniques, new concepts, which is always great for horror. I think, the success of this one might influence some other like, live streaming type horror movies. I don't know if they're going to be as good, but we'll see.
There's a good one from 2020 starring Joe Keery, Steve from Stranger Things. It's called Spree.
Oh yeah. Okay. I actually missed that one. I missed it, but I've been hearing about it. So.
I watched it for the first time like 2 days ago, and I really enjoyed it. It's really depressing. I'll give you that. Like, you feel sorry for him. Like, even when he's like being evil.
But yeah, because he's like a killer, right?
Yeah, he doesn't start off that way
Okay.
though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess this one's a little bit different because, it's like more like I mean, he's a shitty guy, kind of. He's kind of like a annoying asshole, but the main character of Deadstream is not really like evil at heart or anything.
No, he's just immature and stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, I just really enjoyed that one. So that was my number 6. Now we're getting into the top 5. So, guys, I think, we've been going for a little bit. Before we dive into our top 5, we're going to take a very short break just to let you guys, go get a glass of water or go to the bathroom or whatever. So, we'll be right back in just a moment with more of episode 103 of Grave Discussions. Stay tuned. Welcome back, Gravers, to Grave Discussions, episode 103, 2022, a fantastic year for fear. So we went over our numbers 10 through 6 horror films of 2022. Now we just have our top 5. So, I mean, these are the real deal of 2022 for this year for us. So let's just jump right into it. Number 5, Sam, what is your number 5 pick?
All right, are you ready for it?
Yep.
Oh, Jesus. Remember that shit?
Yeah, I remember. I had a feeling.
So number 5 for me is Incantation.
Nice.
And I felt like that movie truly gave me the fucking willies. It gave me the heebie-jeebies. I don't know. It was just like a really paranoid feeling throughout the whole movie. And I don't know, man. Something about little kids and demons like just doesn't fucking sit right with me.
Yeah.
And as far as like American horror movies, I feel like if this was an American horror movie, the creep factor would not have been as bad. But like, there's something different about Asian horror. I feel like the cerebral feeling and like the I'm being watched feeling and the whole like this shit is for real feeling is like much more amplified in Asian horror because I don't know, I feel like I just feel like they do it better than us, man, if I'm just gonna be real with you.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially with the creepy fucking kids of like horror, like Asian horror like knocks that shit out of the park. I just don't know, man. Just the chanting every fucking 20 minutes when there was like a little interlude, the fucking like the whole, and if I mean, dude, from the beginning I felt hopeless. I felt hopeless for the mom because I had a feeling like this whole fucking movie was just gonna go off the rails and it was gonna be, as we call it here at Grave Discussions, one of those no hope movies.
Yep. Yeah, dude. I don't know. What I really liked about Incantation, and I'll give a spoiler alert. It did not make my top 10, but it was close. And I think, I don't know. I can't really explain it. I really liked it. I think the only reason it may not have done it is just because I felt like maybe sometimes the structure, the pacing wasn't my favorite, and
I'll agree on that.
I wasn't super into the narrative, but I thought this was definitely one of the scariest and or creepiest movies of the year by far. And I was gonna say, I think what Asian horror does really well is that they've mastered like scaring you and putting stuff into the darkness, into those like outlying elements, right? Where things they put things where they shouldn't be. They're like the masters of doing that, right? Making you look over here or look over there, and then suddenly, boom, there's like a hand or a ghost or a face over in this corner, or something's jumping out at you when you least expect it. And it doesn't piss you off because, it's not like a jump scare per se, right? I mean, I guess in this movie, maybe there were like one or two, I guess, that you could call like a jump scare, but they're just done so well because they know how to play with like the light and the darkness and the shadows, and the colors and everything just so well, and everything is just so bleak. And I think that's what it does in general as like a regional horror thing, better than like American horror. But
and I also feel like the fact that like the antagonist was an entity that we had no idea about. With like
Mhm.
American horror movies, it's always like a demon named like Astaroth or Asmodeus or
Yeah.
Valak. But now it was like, was it Mother Buddha or whatever? Like
Yeah.
we had no idea if it was a malevolent entity. I mean,
Mhm.
and then like every time they're like, anytime you feel in danger, like just say this chant, and it's like the chant just makes it fucking worse. You know what I mean? So like
Exactly.
you just kind of get like sucked deeper and deeper into it, and like
Mhm.
I just knew it. I knew it as soon as I saw that creepy ass cult when they were
Mhm.
showing like flashbacks, and they're like, don't go in the tunnel or whatever the fuck, and like. I don't know, man. It's just the creep. I'll be honest. I did not like the pacing of this one either, but it was definitely. See, the other movies I put on here because like these are the movies I liked, not that I found scary.
Yeah.
This one I threw it at number 5 because it scared me. Like, and it's been a while since
That's fair.
a movie made my heart race and made me feel very uneasy.
Yeah, the last thing that really did it to my pick like that was probably last year when I threw Caveat in at like number 3 or something. Incantation is probably comparable to that one for this year as far as like how much it unnerved and like scared me, but I don't know. I think I just preferred all these other movies more, but I was going to say what I really loved about Incantation um that I think was probably like the most effective element in generating that creep factor for me was how it involved the viewer, how it involved you.
Yes.
Right from the get-go. You know, you got this character telling you the viewer like do this because it's going to get you through the movie, it's going to make you feel safe. This is a good thing. And then it repeats that throughout the movie, you know, so it builds on that thing. It doesn't just leave it hanging. It builds on it. It really makes you feel because like through that repetition, it's like, okay, like this is a good thing. This is a good thing. Um, and again, it's involving you, the audience. So already you're more invested than if it was just like an objective film. You're just an outside observer, like, you know, 99% of movies. So in that respect, it's almost like a video game, right? Like people are usually like, oh, you know, games scare me more. And that's because like you're an active participant in the video
Exactly.
game. You're the one in control. You're doing this. And you're not really in control in Incantation, but you're more of an active participant in this movie than in like most other horror movies. And that's what I think it does really well. All the way up until the end where you feel betrayed by the movie, and that's what makes it even scarier.
Exactly. And I feel like, you know, a lot of people who watch horror movies, we have this like sort of, at least like we want to believe in some sort of like some ghosts and like some
Mhm.
afterlife and stuff. And and the director of this movie knows that. Director of this movie knows if you're watching a horror movie, you at least like want to believe in like ghosts and spirits and curses and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So he like it's like, well, now you're cursed. And it's like now all of a sudden this movie involves you, and it wasn't even like an active movie, like an interactive movie like Black Mirror Bandersnatch like
Right.
Netflix has. It was just you're watching it unfold, and they know you're watching it unfold, and they already have like a idea of what type of people are watching this movie. So, and I think it did good in freaking people out, like being like, now the curse is
Mhm.
yours. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I saw a bunch of posts on like social media that were people saying like, you know, I really feel cursed. So, I mean, it worked. It did its job. So that's a super solid inclusion. My number 5, like I said in our break, I don't think you're going to expect it. And I think it's because, you know, this movie, I think it's going to be arguable whether a significant portion of, you know, audiences will say that it's like horror, but it's not just horror, but I think there are some great horror elements in it. And it is Bones and All.
I don't think I've heard of this one. Have
hmm
I?
Yeah, probably. It came out like fairly recently. It's actually by the same director who did the Suspiria remake and who also did Call Me by Your Name. Um, Luca Guadagnino, I think is his name, but it's got Timothy Chalamet in it.
Oh, the cannibals.
The Cannibal Lovers, yeah. So it's kind
Yeah,
of like a
I saw a preview for that.
yeah, it's like a horror rom-com road movie, which is a really interesting mixture, but it really does it, I think, actually very well. This is not like a movie that I think your standard, like conventional horror fan is maybe gonna appreciate, but maybe they will. I don't know.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Like judging at least by the trailer, it's not a movie for purists.
no, 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 because it very much calls back to like I said, road movies. So more kind of art house, like Criterion Channel type stuff, like Paris, Texas, for example. Um, it involves this girl who is a cannibal. But it really kind of it does something kind of unique. I don't want to spoil it too much, but I don't know if it's that much of a spoiler, but it introduces this kind of unique mythology to cannibals in this movie. It's almost more like they're adjacent to human beings, like they're born with this
I saw
insatiable
that.
appetite kind of a
I I,
thing.
I kind of gathered that from the trailer when like
Hmm.
they said cannibals can like smell other cannibals or like spot
Yeah.
them or whatever.
Yeah. So it's almost like they're like creatures or something, but not really. Like they're still pretty much human. They're just like a little different. But it still thematically goes into like just like the nature of cannibalism, the very negative nature of cannibalism. Um and so this girl like understands that about herself, but she doesn't like it about herself. She feels very isolated, and so she leaves to go find her mother who abandoned them like a really long time ago. And then on the way, she meets someone else like her who's played by Timothy Chalamet, and they develop a bond and everything as they like hit the road and go through they go on this like cross country journey to get her to her mother basically. And that's all I'll say about the plot. But so there are elements of like romance with like their relationship, but there's also this really interesting and disturbing horror aspect because I mean these are literally cannibals. They're eating people. And there's some really unnerving stuff in the movie as far as like their interactions with their victims and everything and like their hunger and stuff like that. So there's some beautiful cinematography. There's an incredible score. The acting is great. From a technical aspect, this is probably like one of the best made horror movies of the year. And like I said, what horror elements there are pretty tense and pretty disturbing. And I think it just mixes all these little genres together very well in like a cohesive package, and it just comes out to be just a good movie, you know. So yeah, like I said, the horror purists aren't really gonna be super into it, I think, because there's a lot of character development. There's a lot of like introspection, and it's very heavy on like themes and writing. But I thought it was a good movie, and so it's at my number 5.
I'm not surprised. Just judging from the trailer, I expected it to be a actual like cinematic experience and not just like your cookie cutter horror movie with like
Hmm.
cannibal tribes and stuff like that. I expected it to have like some sort of substance and like have a narrative to it and stuff like that, but also like be good. Like you
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like it's rare that we see like these kind of like these like I don't want to say quasi horror movies, you know,
yeah,
but like these movies that kind of like border two different genres.
right. It's like highbrow faux horror kind of. I mean, it is
Yeah.
horror, but it's also a bunch of other stuff too. Um, but yeah, it's I thought it was really good. I mean, the most interesting aspect for me is like we follow, this cannibal, like I said, who realizes that what she's doing is like not natural, that it's not probably a good thing, but it's also innate to her, right? Like
Right.
if she doesn't do this, like she's basically gonna like cease to exist or whatever. And so it's this really like interesting dynamic because like you don't want to like what she's doing, but you also grow to kind of like her and appreciate her. But the whole time you're kind of like also there's this like feeling in the pit of your stomach like, oh, I know what she's doing is just like terrible. But so it's really fascinating. But yeah, that's my number 5. So number 4.
Well, my number 4 is going to be a very popular very cookie cutter, if you want to call it horror movie.
Okay.
But I felt like the fact that it was like other horror movies and followed a certain formula, and people were saying like, "Oh, it was kind of ass. It was kind of ass." I still feel like it did it well, and that movie is Smile.
Okay.
In
Nice.
in terms of enjoyability, in terms of rewatchability, in terms of like I don't know, creep factor.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the jump scares were super subtle, and I fucking leaped when her sister ran up to her car and knocked on the window, and
Oh
then like
yeah.
she turned into like this creature with a crazy twisted fucking neck.
Yeah. I
And
just wish that part wasn't in the trailer. I just wish it wasn't in the trailer.
yeah, I do too. I feel like a lot of it got spoiled, but honestly, that movie was so fucking good. But it was like very stereotypical early 2000s. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's an entity after me movie, much like I don't know. It reminded me of It Follows
Yep.
a lot, and like I don't know. It kind of had I don't know, it had that drag me to hell feeling to it too, if you know what I mean. The whole after like the
Mm-hmm.
3 days and then you're doomed, and then we knew she was doomed because like
Yeah.
out of all these other people that have like died from this entity, like what made us think that she was gonna survive it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was just like add another. It was just these kind of movies like with Drag Me to Hell and It Follows, and I'll call these add another one to the list movies. They're just here to show you another victim of this
Yeah.
unstoppable entity, but probably one of like the more interesting stories, or just one of the stories that that they wanted to show us. Because I'm sure they could have like showed us that last guy who got locked up and who beat it, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't want to show us like how he beat it because they want to introduce us to this entity first as a very powerful, like unbeatable entity. And of course they're going to tell us like at some point like, yeah, it can be beat, but you have to do this, 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 and then suffer the consequences. But that's better than being dead. So either way, if you beat it or you don't, there's like really no happy ending to it.
Yeah. I see what you mean. I'll say this much. I kind of see where you're getting at with the enjoyability. I did enjoy what it was doing. And I'll say I think that part of that is that it's kind of comfortable, because it
That's
does have
exactly what
that.
it is.
Yeah,
That's
it's
exactly what it
familiar,
is. It was just like a Hollywood box office horror movie. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean it was bad. I
No,
just felt like very cookie cutter. But this is like one of the only like cookie cutter movies that I'm like, wow, that was good.
yeah. I think I was a little harsher on it, and here's what I'll say. I think, you know, because I don't think it was all just expectations, because I try not to include any expectations when I do watch something, but I'll say I think what it did really well in creating this atmosphere of just developing this tension and everything. I thought
I
it
thought
did
it
that
did a
really well.
fantastic
Yeah.
job at that.
But I think I was really let down by the fact that there really wasn't anything new or unique, and like you already alluded to, it was very cookie cutter. It was really redundant, kind of derivative of many movies before it. In this whole, like, kind of, I guess if you want to call it a curse subgenre of like supernatural horror. And I was waiting for something kind of like a little bit more interesting to happen.
Like something different than
Yeah,
what we're opposed to seeing stereotypically when it comes to these type of movies.
right.
But I felt like this movie played it very safe. And that's not bad or anything. It was just very
No, it's
much
not
like these
bad.
other movies. Like you said, it's very derivative.
Yeah.
But also, like, I felt like I liked it because it was safe and it was Hollywood. I feel
Yeah.
like safe Hollywood horror should be like Smile. But also, like, a thing in these movies is when shit finally does go, like, not finally, but when shit hits the fans sometimes, like, when there's these, like, moments,
Mm-hmm.
there doesn't seem to be any triggering things. Because, like, think about it. This whole movie is about
Mm-hmm.
trauma and all this stuff, right? It's about PTSD and trauma. But then when we
Mm-hmm.
finally do see the entity and it's like coming about randomly scaring her, it is random. But this entity is supposed to abide by this trauma like rule, like if you see it, you're traumatized. So you
Mm-hmm.
would think that when its ability to like just show up in like the world and trick you and attack you, you would have been at least triggered by something. But it seemed throughout the movie that when it finally would like show itself to her and like scare her, like, just jump out at her, it was more random than anything. And that was kind of my gripe because it's supposed to follow like a certain, like, I want to say routine, right? kill this person in front of someone, and then boom, they have PTSD. Like, this whole movie is about PTSD. Let's be real. Like, that's all
Yeah.
it's about. PTSD and its effect on others and its effect on you, and then, obviously suicide. But it just felt like the moments where this entity would like give you glimpses of what's in store for you, that there was really no triggering event. You know what I mean? That's what kind of
Mhm.
bothered me, that I noticed that it just kind of happened when
Yeah. It,
this entity is so meticulous that it purposely kills people to create trauma and then starts this whole cycle. But during the cycle, it like randomly attacks you. That's what didn't sit right with me. I felt like they could have chose the it could have chose more opportune moments in the character's life based on like what she was doing, and like, you know what I mean? Like, it just felt
mhm.
like the things that would happen to her, like these scares, like her sister twisting her neck at her car, or like her going to the hospital and having the vision of stabbing that patient to death. Like, why did it
Mhm.
happen? Like, and I know, whatever, mystique, but
Yeah.
for an entity that follows a pattern, it sure as hell did not follow patterns. Then that was my issue.
Yeah, it felt like felt like it was inconvenient for scares to happen at certain times because they knew they had to like push the story along. So then when it felt like there was kind of a break, that's when they threw like a scare in, because it was like, oh, okay, it's been a while since there was a scare, and now we're done advancing the plot, so let's throw it in, kind of thing. But I also do understand why people enjoyed it, and I understand why it's high on your list as well. It was just a little lower on mine because, like I said, I couldn't really get past the derivative nature of it, and then, like I said, I was just kind of expecting more from it. But I think, like I said, what it did do well, I think it did great. Um, and that's actually, creating this like horrific atmosphere and leaving you anxious and paranoid and everything. So, um, yeah, I think that's a solid choice. My number four is, I don't know, it's a standout movie from this year for sure. It is a prequel, but I think it's one of the better horror prequels that we've had, and it's kind of a necessary one. It is Pearl.
See, I have not seen it. I have to see
Oh,
it.
okay. Well, I'm not going to go into it like too much just to avoid spoiling it, but you've seen X. Obviously, we talked about X, and one of the big things kind of in X that was left out was why Pearl was kind of behaving the way she was, and what kind of caused her to be this way. And I was thinking it. I mean, she was definitely weird as hell. And sure, we probably could have gone without having a Pearl prequel, but Ty West did it at the same time he was filming X, so it's like, why not? It's acceptable. It's not just like a cash grab. I mean, if you're literally filming two movies at the same time, I mean, hey, go off. Release
Yeah.
them. Whatever. And he clearly wanted to do that for a very particular reason, which is because we don't get much of Pearl other than her crazy, naked, lustful self in X, killing these teenagers and shit. So I think there's some merit to being curious about her backstory and stuff like that. So that's what we get in Pearl. It follows her as like a young girl, following a very similar path of Maxine, which I guess it makes sense why, the two characters are played by the same actress. But she wants to be a star, an actor as well. And so she follows a very similar path. She doesn't get into porn, but she wants to be like a starlet in movies and everything, like a dancer and stuff like that. And she gets taken advantage of by people. But this movie is a little bit different than X because it's a much different visual experience. This movie I think is set in like, now I forget, unfortunately, but I believe it's set in like the ugh, 30s, 40s, 50s, somewhere around there. So um, visually, it looks a lot different to kind of reflect that period. The score also reflects that period. It's not like that sleazy like rock or anything like that. It's much more like contemporary with the times.
Yeah.
even like the costume and everything, costume and wardrobe is like that. But I kind of preferred it to X because this one, it is a slasher, and it has Pearl as like the main character, and she's like the slasher because you can tell like she's fucking crazy. But I think this one is a little bit more engaging because you're sticking with this one character and following her journey as she like breaks down throughout the whole movie. And just from like a visual and auditory perspective, it's way more stimulating than X. So it's just a much more like visually and like a visual and auditory experience that in my opinion is just a bit superior to X, just because it's just more stimulating, it's more engaging. It's different. We don't usually see throwbacks to like that era of America. So I just I don't know, I preferred it, and I think a lot of people probably feel the same way. It's a bit more of like the artsy kind of slasher movie opposed to X, which is like a throwback to the exploitation films and everything. But I think it was really well done, and Mia Goth in this movie is like infinitely better than in X, where like she was still great because she played two characters. She had to play like the older woman and everything, but she really is allowed to go like all out in Pearl, and you'll see what I mean when you watch it.
Yeah, I gotta watch it soon.
But yeah, that's my number 4. So now we're in the top 3. Go ahead.
So mine is, this next one is also, you mentioned it earlier. I don't know if we were recording or not. And I love me fun movies, and I'm a fanboy. So, and I really did enjoy it, honestly. And it has to be Five Cream, aka Scream 5 or Scream, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. All
I
right.
feel like Five Cream would have been lit.
Yeah. Well, now it's just Scream 6, but yeah, Five Cream. God, that would be like a marketing disaster, though, or maybe
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe a success.
I think that's why they didn't do it, because like Five Cream, come on.
Yeah. All right. Well, why is it your number 3?
I don't know, man. I just felt like I took like a time machine back in the day. It like it felt throwbacky, but at the same time it felt super modern because I felt like the stakes were raised. Especially with, spoiler alert, Dewey dying, which like a lot of people didn't like the movie just slowly because of that reason. Like, fuck that movie, Dewey died or whatever. But I felt like it was necessary to like let people know, like, hey, the stakes are raised, like the original characters aren't like untouchable anymore. Like anybody can go at any time. And like honestly, I had no idea who fucking Ghostface was. The fact that it was Richie shook me to my fucking core, because he just came out of nowhere and was like and just stabbed Sam. I felt like people are always like talking about Sam and they're like, "Oh, she's horrible. I hated the actress who played Sam
not
because
so bad."
You know what it was? She's like that. She was very monotone and stuff because she's literally on like bipolar and schizo meds. So like that's what they do to you. They make you very like half your personality basically. Like, and that's what like people don't understand is like, I work with people with disabilities. When they take their meds for their like for either bipolar or like, if they take their like, Abilify for their schizophrenia, like that's what they're like. They're very just like they're just baseline. They're just like not really there because like of the psychotropic, effects of the medicine. Like, and that's what people don't understand. Like, she wasn't being a bad actress. She was acting as if she was on meds, and like she totally did a good job. And like, I don't know. Yeah. I felt like it was super funny too. The thing that hurt my feelings is I really liked Richie, and like he constantly made me laugh.
Yeah.
and him ended up being one of the killers like really hurt my feelings low key.
I mean, that's probably how everybody felt with Skeet Ulrich, like in the first Scream too. Like he was charismatic. He's like the good looking guy, not so like funny per se, but it's probably very similar. But Jack Quaid is an awesome actor, so I understand. I mean, I guess when you kind of like look back
is
at
that
the
Dennis movie, is that Dennis Quaid's son?
I think so. Don't quote me, but I think so. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. But I was Richie. I could understand more so because it's like a legacy sequel, or it's playing off the whole legacy sequel thing because it's Scream. And if it's going to do that, you might as well have it be the boyfriend, throwback to Scream 1.
I
But
just didn't think they would do it, so immediately I thought he's the boyfriend.
yeah.
He's off limits. Like I thought that's the thing with these movies. Like as soon as it's like one type of character, like you stop suspecting that character even in the sequels. Like at least that
Right.
character, like what he's supposed to be, like the boyfriend.
Yeah, because you have to imagine it's going to be like something kind of different. But I wasn't expecting actually, what's her name? Amber
Yeah,
to be the
Amber.
other killer. But I guess, I don't know. Maybe I should have because she was barely in the movie. But at the same time, I also thought that maybe that's why she wasn't the killer because she was barely in the movie. But, it's fine. The motivations were less, in my opinion, believable, I guess.
The toxic fandom.
Yeah, but I understand it. We already talked about it.
Yeah, it's just important to like modern day and
Right.
how it is. That's why they did it. I feel like if the same movie was filmed 10 years ago,
Yeah, it wouldn't make
it
sense.
no, it totally wouldn't because people weren't as toxic as they are now.
Yeah, but I understand. I mean, I think Scream 5 was great. I appreciated that they took risks and like killing off, mainstay characters and also introducing new characters. I know a lot of fans are very attached to like the original cast, but you got to move on. You can't just keep having like Sydney and Dewey and Gale in this franchise until they're fucking gray and, just drop dead on set or whatever. Like that's not the way it works. Every franchise has to have a reset at some point, but this movie I think passed the torch on quite well. It was also very gory, intense, and I thought the overall plot was still good. But I think the next movie is going to be the real test of like how well this one truly passed the torch and leads Scream into the future because the next one is really like they're in a new location, they're out of Woodsboro. It's primarily following this new cast. I mean, Kirby's coming back, but she's still kind of like new, I would say. But it's primarily following this like new group of characters. So if that movie does well, I think that, Scream will be in good hands. But I think that will be the true test of whether or not like Scream 5 was a successful kind of like experiment.
I feel like they're kind of damned if they do and damned if they don't in certain aspects. Like, if they kill Kirby, they'll be like, well, what was the point of bringing her back for one movie? Or if they make her the killer, like, what was the point of that? She was just like another horror movie nerd, like Randy, who ended up being the killer this time, though.
Yeah.
But then again, like, should they kill Gale or should they not? Because let's say they kill Gale, then it's just like you guys are trying to do what you did in the last movie, but no one really cares because Sydney's not there and Gale's like the only legacy character. Then again, if they don't kill Gale, it's like, well, then where are the stakes? Like, I feel like it's a really, really like fucked up position that they're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm excited for it, but Scream 5 was solid. And I understand why it's number 3 on your list. My number 3 is also a slasher, but and it's a sequel, but it's not Scream 5, obviously. I already talked about it, but my number 3 horror film of 2022 is none other than Terrifier 2.
Oh.
So,
I 100% understand.
Yeah. Terrifier 2, I think, knocked it out of the park. For many, many reasons. I mean, the gore, the special effects, just the overall depravity of it and everything, like, went up 1,000% over like Terrifier 1.
Yeah, one other than the upside down scene.
Yeah, that was the only thing. But this movie had something like comparable in the bedroom scene, which, I mean, I don't know. For me, that was even like more fucked up than the upside down scene, just because it lasted so long.
Yes.
And like just additional shit. Like he kept doing more to her and everything. Like I was just like, dude, it's never gonna fucking end.
Yeah, and dude, when he kicked open the door and ran in with the bleach and the salt, I started laughing so fucking hard.
Dude, that was insane. So that whole scene was fucked, man. That was crazy.
The arm break though. Ugh.
Yeah. It was all just hard. It was hard to watch, just like that scene in Terrifier 1. But like I said, this one just lasted for such a long time, so it was insane. But that was effectively a lot of the movie, like, not as extreme as that particular scene, but the whole movie of like Terrifier 2 had just crazy shit going on constantly. But the difference is that this one actually had more of like like a typical story to it, even though there were a lot of elements that, you know, they're going to expand on in Terrifier 3, obviously. But
I felt like this one's story was more like, I don't want to say like, I felt like it was more, I don't know if cosmic is the right word. It's just felt much bigger. It felt bigger.
Right.
Like, it felt like there was more going on than just a slasher. Like with the whole angel thing and with the sword and everything. I felt like I have a theory.
Okay.
Here's my theory. That little girl, the reason why Art sees her is that used to be Art's daughter.
Okay.
So, and I feel like the main character, what was her name?
Sienna.
I feel like her dad, during one of his schizo episodes, because, like, you know, he thought, like, and he could see the future, right? He saw that, like, the clown was evil, that Art the clown was evil. So, and this is probably one of those self-fulfilling prophecies, right? So, Art the clown wasn't going to be evil, but because Sienna's dad had a vision of him being evil, he went to the circus, he burned it down, and he killed Art's daughter. That led Art to fucking snap, go fucking crazy, and then turn into like a sociopathic murdering clown because his daughter had been killed. So the reason Sienna's dad saw that in the future Art the clown was this evil clown was because he went and murdered Art the clown's daughter and half the circus because he saw the vision that Art the clown was an evil clown. It's just, it's like a, like I said, it's just like impossible to avoid because that's just how like the timeline is set up. Like, it's just like he sees Art as evil, so he goes and kills Art, but little does he know Art's not evil yet, and Art becomes evil because he killed Art's daughter due to the vision that he saw about Art being evil. I feel like it's that deep.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty interesting theory. Other people have theorized that Art is the dad, but
They would have
something like
recognized him,
that.
though.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, but I don't know. It's hard to say, but this movie definitely throws like a lot of ideas out there for you to theorize about, which I appreciate, even though like it's kind of strange and vague. But I like that it set up these elements up. I like that it had some semblance of a story and like character development and everything. And you know, like I said, it really raised everything by like 1,000%. Sienna, I think, is an amazing final girl. Probably one of the best final girls in a horror movie.
It's been a while
in recent memory.
It's been a while since. What's the last good final girl we had?
I mean, maybe what's her name? What was her name from Your Next?
Oh yeah.
What was her name? Erin or something like that. She was good, but
or the other girl from like literally the Final Girls.
Yeah, she was solid too. There haven't been that many like memorable, like iconic ones, you know.
No, Sienna definitely, like, she's up there now in my book. She's a gangster.
Yeah, I mean, she was badass. You know, she took the fight to Art. She had the awesome like Valkyrie outfit and everything. So there were just a lot of, I think, elements to that character that made her stand out and become very cool. So I just love Terrifier 2, man. It was a lot of fun. It was very entertaining. I also really just dig the fact that, you know, Damien Leone like did not have this incredible budget, but he managed to promote the hell out of this movie, make it so fucking crazy and depraved that, you know, it has to have everybody talking because of how like extreme and unfiltered and wild it is. And you know, he really popped off with it. Like, this movie made quite a bit of money against its very like humble, meager budget. It went to a bunch of theaters around the country when it really had no right to do that because it's like a small, weird, extreme indie horror movie. And it just became really successful. And, you know,
I feel like that's the craziest thing that happened in 2022.
Yeah.
Terrifier 2 being on like the like whatever it was on Conan or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously, because, you know, I mean, these kind of movies, it's got more polish to it than like your standard like Tubi release. But
1,000,000%.
But still, it kind of also belongs in that realm because it's very niche. Like I said, it's very extreme horror, so it's not for like a large portion of the movie-going audience. But what it does do is it appeals to like a very specific hardcore horror movie audience, enough so that it has a lot of people talking and it gets out there. And that's like word of mouth marketing. It's been a while since like a movie
that.
did that.
I mean, that's what happened with Halloween.
Yeah, exactly.
Micro budget. I think Halloween had a bigger budget than this, and that was in 1978. I think Halloween had like a $300,000 or $420,000 budget, and most of that was to pay Donald Pleasance $50,000.
Yeah, and I mean, there wasn't really anybody like Donald Pleasance in Terrifier 2, so it was it was very grassroots, but it became like really, really popular, and it's got a lot of people talking. Even if you hate the movie, like you probably know about Terrifier 2, and that's the important thing.
I feel like David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown is a fucking icon now.
Oh yeah.
Like, let's be real. Like, Art the Clown is, he's definitely going to be a staple now. Like, when they were like, now when you like buy those cookie cutter movie posters from like Spencer's or like on Amazon, they're gonna add Art the Clown to those posters like in about like 5 to 10 years.
Oh yeah,
I'm telling
100%. I mean, even like recently, we got a bunch of like horror movie stickers, and it was like a big pack, and I can't tell you how many like Terrifier and like Art the Clown stickers there are in that. So he's already like edging his way in there,
and well deserved. I feel like David Howard Thornton's representation of Art the Clown, like Mike Giannelli, the first Art the Clown in All Hallows Eve, he was great and all, but I feel like this is one of the rare like movies where like the OG slasher is not like the best version of it. I feel like David Howard Thornton brings something different to art, and he's fantastic, and he's a great dude. He always replies on social media. He'll always talk to you, and he'll always acknowledge you. I mean, I message him frequently, and he's never ignored me. So shout out David Howard Thornton.
That is rare. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So that's our number 3 picks, guys. We've only got 2 more movies left. We'll try and be sort of brief here, but go ahead, Sam. What's your number 2 horror movie?
My number 2, and I'm not sure if this one made it to your top 2, but for me, I enjoyed it. Number 2 for me is Barbarian.
Actually, it's the same pick for me.
I knew it. I fucking knew it. I knew.
I wonder if we're gonna have the same number 1 now. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's talk about Barbarian.
I felt like the fact why it worked so well at the beginning is you didn't know what the fuck to expect. Most of us were told to walk into this movie blind, like you told me. Like, you're like, just go into it. Don't look up anything. And boy howdy, we got a good like incest monster creature feature. And you know me, dude. Dude, tell me you didn't get unnameable vibes like initially.
Yeah, I did. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like the monster or whatever isn't the most unique monster in the world, but even in like Smile, we got like a similar type of being or whatever. But I still think in Barbarian it was highly effective just because of like the context of what was going on and like how the creature behaved and everything. I thought it was like way more effective for me.
And I feel like the movie is smart without being up its own ass and artsy fartsy. Like just the title Barbarian. He lives on Barbary Street in Detroit. Shout outs to our roots. But also he's a barbarian because he's like raping women and then raping his offspring and creating more fucked up Alabama offspring.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I'll say this much, Barbarian.
And it was Doomhead from 31. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah, that guy's great. But I mean, I'm almost sad that he wasn't in more of the movie, but I was fine with it. Richard Brake, that's his name. Because, I mean, he was really just there to kind of give like a very brief background into what was happening, which I think is fine. I mean, I know it kind of showed it, but for this movie, it was sort of necessary. But this movie, I'll say for me, went up all the way to number 2 because it was definitely the most unnerved I've been with a horror movie this year. I think like especially that entire kind of opening act, like before you realize like what's going on, but also after that, like I was still engaged and I was still freaked out and thrilled like after the monster reveal, but especially leading up to that with the mystery, with the tension, everything that was happening, people screaming in the movie theater like, no, don't go back in there, like what are you doing? That whole part was very anxiety inducing for me, and I thought that was very effective. Like one of the best segments of a horror movie to come out this year for me.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that all like the little like what like all these people are supposed to represent in society wasn't like shoved down your throat.
Right.
Bill Skarsgård's character was supposed to be the guy like he's not gonna like date rape you, but he maybe would. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like that was his whole vibe. And then her vibe was like, you know, being like the trusting woman who's just trusting because she's put in a situation where she feels like she's forced to like have to trust. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Or it's because she's scared, or it's because, you know, XYZ, a multitude of reasons. And like she's basically backed into a corner. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And I like that those messages weren't like super like explicit shoved down your throat, and she started talking about like, you know, like she like no buzzwords were thrown
Right.
around. Like she wasn't like saying like you're mansplaining me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, 40% of men, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like this movie made its point without like explicitly like spitting all that shit in your face like the Black Christmas
Oh
remake
yeah,
did.
God, don't even bring that up. But I know what you mean. I mean, like you said, it was not very explicit. You can kind of just infer these sort of messages from the dialogue, from the situation at hand, and people were going like, the character wasn't very bright or whatever. But but she was supposed to be a good person, is what I'll say. And
That's what it was about her. That's what it
yeah,
was
and
about her.
if you're a good person, you try not to like leave people behind, right? You try to do the good thing, and so I know people are always harping on about like logic in horror movies, but you know what? Logic doesn't make a horror movie. It's just as simple as
No, it
that.
doesn't.
So I understand her motivations in this movie. I get it. Um, I love the fact that they, kind of had Bill Skarsgård in there as a red herring, and then I especially and really love the fact that in the middle of the movie they kind of flipped it all around, put Justin Long in there, and in almost like a separate situation, but it all ended up tying together, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
I think they did a really great job, like tying all those threads together.
And he totally was a bad person, like
Oh
Justin
yeah.
Long's character, and you could tell, like when he started explaining to his buddy at like the bar, like if he you know, sexually assaulted that woman or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then once he explained it the way he explained it, he basically like coerced her and all that stuff. And you're like, oh, so you are a piece of shit. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, and you could tell right away that he deserved whatever was going to happen to him, but you were still very much interested in what was going to happen, especially when you realized that he was going back to the same place where all this crazy shit just happened. And so you knew there was more to it. And I think that it was a perfect way to draw you back in to this terrifying, crazy situation
yeah,
with this character that you didn't really want to get ahead. You didn't want him to live, but I don't know. It was just it was very cool. I loved like the setup. I loved the execution. Sure, it had some flaws, but here's the thing. It created a really cool atmosphere, especially with that whole underground segment. I thought it was very tense, very creepy, and honestly, it was scary at times. And that's the important thing. And it kept you engaged the whole time. So.
yeah. Honestly, like I don't have much to add because like we've really touched base on this
Mhm.
movie because like there's not a whole lot to unpack. Like the implicit stuff's like not something that's like super like conceptual and like convoluted. It was just basic like societal things that people like
Mhm.
tend to like not really notice, like the, you know, women being backed into the corner and why they got to make like certain decisions and why they're kind of like nice to people and they're like, well, why didn't you just tell
Mhm.
him to fuck off? It's like, well, that's not how it works because women can be subjected to like violence, you know, if they turn down a man and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Like there's just all these points, and I feel like the movie like just touched base on that really good, and the fact that she was a good person and why she didn't like, I mean, she was still like, you know, very like kind of suspicious of people, but not to the point where like she completely like shut people out. And at the end, that's what almost fucked her, is that like she just assumed the best of people, and then she like went out of her way at the end to go help him, and that led her into like deeper shit because like she could have just like literally just walked the fuck away from that whole situation.
Yeah, she could have, but she didn't. So, all right, that's our number 2 pick. I really wonder if we have the same number one. I feel like it's possible, but I guess we'll see here in a moment. So, Sam, what is your number one horror movie of 2022?
I will let you know right now, we did not pick the same number one
Okay.
because I didn't say anything because at my number one is Terrifier 2.
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha. All right. Well, why is it? I mean, we talked about it, but just tell me why it's your number one.
You know me, I love cheesy 80s slashers. I've been waiting for so long for this one. I watched it like the second it became available, did that little like temporary like Screambox subscription or whatever.
Ah,
And then, canceled it obviously because I don't give a shit about Screambox. No offense to Screambox,
yeah.
I just Shudder, like we are like that's our thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been like a me and you thing, Shudder. So I felt like we needed more Art the Clown. It took the movie like a few scenes to like start unraveling into like your stereotypical like Terrifier Art the Clown slasher movie, but I felt like we had a we had a we had a storyline with Mystique. Nothing was like really like flushed out to like the extent where you know exactly what's going on. That's what I like. Like I said, I hate movies that spoon feed us. I love the kills. I loved seeing Art the Clown, and I thought Sienna was a fantastic new final girl, and she's memorable, and she has she just has like these like distinguishing characteristics. Like she got her shit pushed in like multiple times and she still got up to save her little fucking brother. She's like a fucking badass like Valkyrie angel,
Mm-hmm.
and she kicked his ass at the end, man. Spoiler alert. Like
Yeah.
she's a fucking gangster. I loved seeing Art the Clown. I love Halloween themed movies. You know that about me. Any
Mm-hmm.
movie that's like set around Halloween, I love. And then this movie had everything I wanted: Halloween, slashers, badass final girls. And that's why it is at my number one. Once again, David Howard Thornton knocked it out the park as Art the Clown. And I felt like the 2 hour runtime was super necessary. It did not feel like a 2.5 hour movie. I did not
No,
feel
it
like
didn't.
it did not feel like I just sat through Titanic. And it was badass. The kills were badass. The pacing was completely necessary. The dream sequences, their dad's journal, everything tied in. And we will see next movie how this all pans out. And I cannot wait because I hope they make up millions and millions of dollars, because after Terrifier 2 and all the hype it got, everyone's going to tune in to see Terrifier 3. It is going to be a staple in every horror movie household. Mr. Art the fucking Clown.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better myself, man. I think art is definitely the next Mount Rushmore style horror icon, especially in like the modern age of horror movies. So
100%,
well deserved,
man.
well deserved. Well,
I'm excited.
yeah. Well, there's like a pretty glaring omission from my list. I don't know if you haven't seen it or if you forgot about it or if it just didn't make your list for whatever reason, which is totally fine. I know this one, as usual with his movies, is very divisive, but my number one horror movie of 2022 is none other than, yep, Jordan Peele's Nope.
Oh,
Yep.
I want to hear your take
Well,
and why you loved it so much.
Listen, man, dude, I don't know, I was just sucked into the whole vibe from the get-go, And once I really learned more about the film, about its themes, I mean, I even wrote about it a few times for like Screen Rant. I really dove into it. I mean, this movie is just spectacular, It well, first of all, here's the thing, I was excited about it from the moment I even like saw like the promotional materials for it and then like the trailer, because I was like, oh wow, this is really cool, like a UFO kind of like sci-fi horror movie from none other than Jordan Peele. Like, this is really interesting. The trailer obviously didn't give us really too much as far as like themes and anything. It was just about these like horse trainers who encounter a UFO on like a farmstead or whatever. Okay, basic enough story. You have seen it, right?
I have not.
Okay, you have not. Damn.
I don't know if you remember, but I was going to go see it with Olivia,
Oh,
and then some shit came up. I forgot what happened.
okay. All right. Well, you got to watch it. So I'm not gonna.
I was just it's crazy. I was just talking to Olivia about Nope. Like, it was either today or yesterday.
Okay.
Like, it's
Yeah, you got to go see it. But look, so I'm not gonna spoil anything. So no spoilers here. But there's it. If you watch the trailer, you kind of know what to expect on the surface from this movie. But what's actually going on is not what you would expect. And so this movie for me,
Is it out? Is it out on media yet?
Yeah, it is. It's not like streaming free, I don't think, anywhere, but you can
No,
rent, you can
no,
rent it.
I'm
Yeah.
probably just gonna get the Blu-ray. You know how I am.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's available. There's even like a pretty nice 4K. But
Ooh,
what I'll say is this movie had the biggest twist in it for me this year in a horror movie, which I'm incredibly excited about, because once it happens on the screen, you're gonna be like, oh shit, like that's awesome. Because it's not what you would expect. At least maybe you will. I don't know, but I didn't, and so I really enjoyed it in that aspect. So unfortunately I can't go into it too much, but it's a really cool twist because it's a little bit of a different sci-fi horror than what you would expect, and there are some really just fantastically done themes in this film. When you watch the film, you're going to understand it's very much like a Hollywood movie, but it talks about Hollywood in a very specific way. It goes into like exploitation and spectacle, because all these characters in one way or another are reflective of like exploiting something to generate a spectacle, exploiting something to create a movie, to create something that people are going to go want to see as they're chasing down this UFO. It all ties in together beautifully. Jordan Peele does a fantastic job, I think, tying in all these themes together. The cinematography is stunning. The score is fantastic. The sound design is amazing. And there are some genuinely like horrifying parts in this movie. You'll see what I mean. But just like front to back, I think it's like an incredibly well done film. And like I said, it has it presents you with this idea, and then it completely goes like a different way than you'd expect, but it still manages to tie in all these like really interesting themes together. And I'm a sucker for sci-fi horror too, so
for sure.
I can't really go that much more into it, but that's what I'm gonna say. And I just really liked it.
I purposely would like scroll past the posts about Nope and like the comments, because I did plan on watching it when it came to physical media, and I did not want any spoilers, because I know, like, judging by the people who commented on it, I could tell that I was going to be one of the people that liked it and not one of those fucking, hicks that like just want to watch another fucking Jason movie. You know what I mean? So like, I read one fucking spoiler that I regret. So spoiler alert if you haven't watched it. I've learned that the thing that you think is the ship is the alien.
Okay, that's basically it. Yeah. It's like an organism, so it's not a ship, and that's what everybody thought it was going into it. But then you kind of learn that it's in itself a life form, which is really, really cool, because I've never really seen that done in like a sci-fi horror movie before.
So is the whole movie about like the whole like the fucking dodginess of Hollywood? Is like the ship supposed to represent Hollywood? Or the alien's supposed to represent Hollywood?
No, the ship isn't really supposed to represent Hollywood. The ship is kind of, so like I said, the central theme is kind of exploitation and spectacle, right? So the ship kind of represents how Hollywood or filmmakers would exploit, say, animals, for example, in films to create something that people want to watch, but something that
I like that. I like that a lot.
But it's something that they can't control. It's something that they don't really understand. And that's the whole point. It's like, they're trying to capture proof of this thing, but there's this whole analog about like a theme of, you're not really supposed to try to control things that you don't understand for like personal benefit, for personal gain, for publicizing it, etc.
I gotta watch this fucking movie, dude.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of like really fantastic writing that exemplifies like all those themes. So yeah, so I really liked it. And then, like I said, it's not just that; it's also the fact that he creates some like really memorable, crazy fucking scenes that are both like beautiful and also horrifying at the same time. You'll see what I mean.
That's what I want.
Yep. So yeah, definitely go watch it if you haven't seen it. That's my number one movie of the year. It's been a while. I mean, like Jordan Peele's movies have been creeping up, almost hitting my number one, and this is the one that did it. I would say this is probably my favorite Jordan Peele. I mean, I know his other films were like more heavy on like black centered themes, and there are some in this movie, but this one's definitely kind of more of like a gaze at Hollywood itself.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's gonna be it. So guys, thanks for sticking around if you have this long. We really appreciate you being here. We love doing these top 10 lists, and I'm really looking forward to 2023. I'm wondering what our next number one movies are gonna be.
Oh, our number one movie is definitely going to be Evil Dead Rise. I'm calling it right now.
I hope so.
Come on, bro. We're both fucking stans for that shit. So, like, there's no way we're not going to love that movie. Yeah. Unless it's completely batshit stupid.
I don't know. I think we're really gonna like it, but we'll see when it comes out, man. But yeah, that's gonna be it, guys. Like I said, thanks for sticking around. Sam, if they want to hear or see more of Grave Discussions, where can they find us?
If you want to look for us, you will find us. The main place is https, just to be secure, //www.gravediscussions.net. And you can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Yep, that's right. And then you can also follow us on social media, of course. Just look up Grave Discussions. We should be right there. Follow us for all the latest, news and updates, and when we have new episodes, new articles, etc. But that's really it, guys. If you like this, leave a comment, share it, and then we're going to be taking a break through the holidays, and we'll be back next year with more
Grave Discussions. 2023 is gonna be a trip.